This episode contains material that might be triggering for some. If you need to stop the podcast at any time to take care of yourself, please do so.
If you need support, you can call the 24/7 National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. Dialectical behavior therapy was created in the 1980s by Marsha Linehan in Seattle, Washington.
Today, DBT is taught all over the world.
We're two therapists who believe everyone can benefit from DBT skills.
I'm Kate.
I'm Michelle.
And this is DBT and Me. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
It's Q&A 40.
Ooh,
I like the ones that are... I know. How exciting. We have to look up how many... Didn't we say this before we stopped? I'm serious. Like 6 months ago, I have to look up what episode we were on so we could say something about the important ones. I don't remember what number it was supposed to be, though. Like 100th? I think we're already past our 100th, aren't we?
Probably.
Damn. Oh, well. We're bad about keeping track of our milestones, apparently. Anyway, yeah, we've got a couple of long ones today.
Couple long ones, couple short ones.
Couple long, yeah, we gotta mix it up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think you take it away to start with.
Yeah, I do get to take it away to start with. Yeah, and Kate and I were just acknowledging before we started officially recording that, whew, boy, does our hearts go out to this next listener.
See, now I was debating saying something. I was like, trigger warning also. I don't know.
This episode, this email, it came to us in email form. Yeah, this might be a little triggering for people. There's your heads up. Okay, so it reads, "Hi, Kate and Michelle. My DBT therapist here in Iceland suggested your podcast, and I'm really glad to have discovered you guys. I've been struggling with anxiety and depression all my life. I'm 34 now, male, autistic, and I'm just going to relay the last year for now. My sister took her own life this January. I was in the mental ward at the time, and soon after they discharged me. This was directly following a suicide attempt of my own at the end of 2020. We both grew up in the same hell. She took to suicide attempts regularly, and I wound up in drug use. We just found our own ways to cope, I guess. Soon after I was discharged in March, I made another suicide attempt, but this one was very serious. I tried to hang myself by jumping from a third-floor balcony. I somehow lived, but I mangled my body permanently. After this, I spent nearly a year recovering and in intensive mental care in a closed ward. Over this time, I made the decision to cut all ties with my parents and brother. So now, the only family I have is my other sister that lives in Denmark. I finally got a place to live in December and am now living alone, just trying to exist. My thoughts and questions are mostly related to the material. Most of the time I find myself struggling just to want to live, hating myself for not wanting to, and ignoring or denying my emotions. At least I admit that this is the case. I'm trying to do my homework in DBT, and I have 2 therapists, and I take my meds and all of that. I had a good moment today, just telling myself, of course you are anxious and you feel terrible. Anyone would, and that's okay. It was just the moment of accepting my feelings and situation, not waiting to feel better. I'd like to know if you guys have any tips on how I might proceed."
Yeah. It just makes you want to like hug the listener. I don't know. Whenever folks are going through something that I can relate to, I like to try and mention that I can relate to do it and give as much empathy as I can. So starting with that, listener, just a ton of empathy for not wanting to live and also feeling bad about it. You know, I've been in these places where I was desperately suicidal, and at the same time I could sort of, objectively evaluate my life, and it was a good life, and so I'd judge myself for my own suicidality, right? Which is, of course, the nicest way we can deal with ourselves when we're in that horrible of a space, right? Aren't we great? Mental illness sucks! Right? I don't know. just a lot of validation and empathy, because it's a hard fucking space to exist in. You know, the listener talks about just trying to exist, and that's real. And that's an honorable pursuit, my friend. Especially when it's that difficult, right? When you have mental and physical difficulties that are going on all the time, that's a rough spot to be in. So let's see. Great job validating your own feelings. That thing that you were talking about at the end, I absolutely love it. I couldn't say it better myself to a client, right? Of course you feel like shit. Anyone would. And that's okay, because it's appropriate, right? It's always a little bit shitty, I think. You can tell me if you agree, Michelle, to be in the place where someone's like, I feel awful. The only thing you can say is, well, yes. Like, that is in fact the appropriate response to your situation. I'm so sorry, but
your emotions fit the facts.
Exactly. Your emotions fit the facts, Sonny. So you just have to be kind to yourself and be there with them, right? And be there through them. One thing that I have found that has been helpful for me and also for clients of mine in the past is to take the time at the end of every day, and you can either record it or share it with someone if you have a close friend or partner that you want to share it with, but deciding what your favorite moment was from the day. And this is, you could call this a gratitude practice if you wanted to. I intentionally avoid the thing I'm most grateful for today, because the thing I really love the most about favorite moment is that it doesn't actually have to rise to the level of being good. You can have had an abjectly shitty day and just had the moment that was least shitty. That was your favorite moment today. And so I feel like using favorite moment as a way to approach it, sometimes there are pleasant things, right? Sometimes sometimes the favorite moment is a good moment, which is lovely, but otherwise it leaves space for you to meet yourself where you are, right? And sometimes where you are is having a day that was pretty much all shit. And to try and force sort of false gratitude, I find can trigger more judgment for yourself, that you're not recognizing all these things you have to be grateful for, right? And so, yeah, I like favorite moment because you don't have to shit on yourself about it. You don't have to pretend things are better than they are. And at the same time, what it means is that after enough repetition, your brain is going to start looking for your favorite moment. It's going to put a new lens on how you are engaging with your everyday, because your brain knows you're going to be asking it this question at the end of the day. And so it starts looking, oh, maybe this is going to be my favorite moment today. Oh, no, maybe this thing I'm going through right now is going to be my favorite moment, right? It starts paying closer attention to the things that either are pleasant or get the closest to being pleasant, positive, happy, good, in your days. And also we tend to, our brains tend to remember things by how they end. So if we can find something good to think about at the end of a day, it helps us remember that day as a good day, even if it wasn't a very good day. That's a long way of saying, I think picking your favorite moment at the end of the day can be a great way to gently and non-judgmentally meet yourself where you are, while also trying to get yourself started in the direction, listener, that it sounds like you're trying to go. Let's see what else. And then just dipping into DBT skills, just because I love self-soothing always and forever. It will make an appearance pretty dang often in my answers to these things, because I think our poor human bodies need some loving. And I'll go ahead and say, listener, I think especially yours maybe could use some loving, right? So self-soothing can be a lovely place to come from. Accepts is my favorite distress tolerance chunk, I think. And so ways to distract yourself and get your mind off of what's happening for you in the present. That is an absolutely legitimate skill and thing to do when you've just been sitting in, the hellhole for longer than is okay. And last but not least, just wise mind, for decision making and just for a touchstone, right? Sometimes our wise mind knows why we want to live more than the rest of us might know. Right? Sometimes it can tell us that it won't always be this way. when we need to hear that. So that's all my stuff, Michelle. You're next.
Yeah. I'll echo a lot of what Kate said because Kate had some great things to say. Because I also really loved that piece at the end of the email. I mean, yeah, the listener just put it so beautifully, right? And that can really be a template, I think, for people to follow. Of course, you are feeling blank. Fill in the blank here. Anyone would, and that's okay. Just fill in the blank, right? Perfect.
Absolutely perfect.
So keep doing that. I mean, keep doing that as much as you can with whatever you're feeling. Because again, I would say most, if not all of us, have at least one emotion that feels really uncomfortable and hard to let ourselves feel. But really try to not censor yourself with like how big an emotion might be or what the emotion is in the first place. It's all okay to feel. It's all okay. So yeah, I love that. The other thing to kind of touch on what Kate was talking about with the favorite moment idea, which is great. I mean, Kate explained that beautifully. The thing that like, right, because the listener's talking about like, I'm just existing. I'm struggling to want to live. Like I'm struggling to basically like really enjoy life. Again, completely understandable. And also, I got the sense that kind of what this listener is longing for, or like what would maybe be like a very long-term, big picture goal here is to really practice the A from ABC, right? It's all about accumulating positives, long-term and short-term. And really being able to accumulate the positives long-term, I mean, that is lifelong work. It takes a long time to get there. And a lot of times the path to get there starts with, if you can, trying to do something pleasant or enjoyable, ideally every day, but if that's too much of a stretch, that's okay. You can start with once a week. You can start with once a month. Doesn't matter. Make it as small as you need to until you do it. Kate was touching on self-soothe and accepts. This is where DBT can have a lot of crossover. Some of that pleasant events stuff that's a part of the A from ABCs can also very much fall under self-soothing, some of those things, and also can very much fall under the A from accepts with activities. So if you are able to find something to do, and this might be that you go through the motions of it for a while before it's like, oh, I actually enjoyed that today, or I felt something while I did that today. This can really happen like with walks. If you're up to taking walks, that's just a very, very generic example. So take it or leave it, listener, with that example. But I think about that a lot because sometimes people will be like, I'm kind of making myself go for a walk. I know it's good for me. Yeah, I'm like you talked about, Kate. I'm just going to Nike it. Just do it. Yep. Okay, I'm going to go for a walk. Right? I don't really want to, but I'm going to. And then, maybe the 12th time you're going for a walk, you're like, today I actually kind of enjoyed that. So it's hard. It takes a lot of patience, a lot of persistence, and a lot of practice. But I would say, listener, that that's what I hope for you. And just be real patient with yourself while you're on the path to get there. Okay, next one, Kate.
Yeah, this one's, there's a lot in this one, I think.
Like
just this whole episode, I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, this one may also be triggering.
Yep, that's exactly what I was thinking. So we're just in for a heavy one. Sometimes it just works out that way. I think with the Q&As, sometimes it's a lot of really heavy shit, and sometimes it's less. So here we are today. Okay, so this one reads, I had a women's health appointment yesterday for my annual. These appointments are very difficult for me in general, but I've been able to build enough distress tolerance to go. However, I cannot tolerate breast exams. When I declined the breast exam, both the nurse and the doctor pushed back on my decision. I used a variant of Dear Man, or maybe Fast, I'm not sure, to set my boundary. I said something like, I understand the importance of the breast exam, and I'm not comfortable receiving one today. I do regularly perform self-checks looking for lumps and closely monitoring any changes, although I know the clinical recommendation is to have a physician perform the exam. So I'm willing to sign a waiver or refusal if that's needed for your records. The doctor asked why I was so uncomfortable. I answered with, it's related to trauma. I feel like from this point, their attitudes toward me changed. They seemed short and later dismissive of my concerns, questions about another issue I've been having, whereas they seemed more friendly and attentive before. I also struggled to sit up after the exam. Bad back. I have to lean on the side first. And I felt like the nurse was watching me. Then I heard her laughing with other nurses after she left my exam room and felt pangs of humiliation all around. It says, paranoia is a common response when I'm feeling triggered, so I'm not trying to imply she was certainly laughing at me, just to be clear. It's a day later, and I'm still struggling with embarrassment and shame from yesterday's appointment. I'm working on checking the facts. Does anyone have any other skills to recommend for this situation?
My response is going to be very short. I'm normally pretty wordy. My response is going to be pretty short and to the point here. The very first thing I wrote not okay in all caps, exclamation point. None of this was okay. None of it. And listener,
none of what the doctors and nurses did, to be fair.
Oh,
to be clear.
Yeah. Yes, to be very clear. Listener, you set a beautiful boundary.
And that was amazing, really.
Yeah, and it shouldn't have been questioned. And it was. As soon as you said it's related to trauma, that should have been the end of the story. And you talk about how they seem to get short and dismissive and all of that. That's when, if anything, I would hope that as a medical provider, they would have amped the
more tender.
Up. Yep.
Yeah.
And been more understanding of how hard this was for you. So this was not okay, how this situation was handled. In terms of what to do, I just wrote down practicing self-validation and give with yourself. To really be able to, even though your boundary was, I don't want to say like, how do I want to put this? Like you set a boundary, and even if like they didn't perform the breast exam on you after you said you didn't want it, it really doesn't feel like your boundary was respected. It didn't feel that way, even if they did not do the thing that you told them not to do. But yeah, you didn't get the validation from them that I wish you had received. So it's super important to give that to yourself. And I'm hopeful that if you do, you can walk away from this experience feeling very proud of the boundary that you set. I don't know you, and I feel very proud of you. Like when I read this, I was extremely impressed.
I just feel like she's such a badass. Like,
yeah, I know. And part of me wants to like go back and find this post and be like, hey, I might not have like, because I probably didn't comment on this one because this was while I was on maternity leave. And I think when I saw it, a lot of people commented and were very validating. But yeah, I almost kind of want to go back and be like, I'm proud of you. Good job. Like, you did such a hard thing. And so, like, even though the doctor and the nurse reacted horribly, feel proud of yourself. Like, you did it. So, that's what I have to say.
Yeah, if anyone ought to be feeling embarrassment or shame after that, it's the doctor and the nurse.
Yeah.
Not you, listener. I understand. I do get it, right? And sometimes embarrassment and shame are so tied to trauma triggers, then even if we don't, think we deserve to be feeling that way, it can be hard not to. But yeah, if you can let go of that embarrassment and shame and just, I don't know, like pat yourself on the back pretty massively, because yeah, that was, I know, I'm mostly just echoing 90% of what Michelle said, including chiming in with you. So I'm sorry about that. But like, I don't know, I'm just so impressed with this listener, so impressed and so mad at the medical providers. I not the same, but I've had in the past a partner who was transgendered, and going with him to get his annual with things like a pap smear and things like that were so traumatizing. Like, doctors and nurses wouldn't respect his pronouns, it was awful, right? So like, I've witnessed firsthand what it can be like to be being invalidated, not listened to, had your boundaries violated in the context of someone, messing around in pretty important parts of your anatomy, right? Pretty intimate feeling places. And so, yeah, just, I'm so mad on your behalf. So that's why get that out there. And so it's just, again, I think you were just an absolute badass. And if you could just like tattoo badass somewhere on you and that could be your coping skill, that'd be awesome. But check the facts is also great. I think you're using that in a great place, right? Michelle and I do think we deviate a little bit from the norm of how people see that as a skill, but I think it's a lovely skill to help validate yourself, right? Like a lot of times when you can see that your emotions really do fit the facts. Though I suppose also perhaps you were using it to show yourself that you didn't need to be embarrassed, in which case that is also a lovely way to show it.
Yeah.
So check the facts is awesome. Also, self-soothing after the appointment, if you have to go through something like this again, like plan for it, maybe have some things in your car, and, just be ready to do self-soothing if you have to afterwards. Also, I love cope ahead for dealing with things that we know are going to be stressful. I'm betting that you said I don't remember how the listener phrased it, but something about, gotten to the place where she can handle having these annual exams. So my bet is you've done something close to cope ahead with this already, but you might be more deliberate about that if you wanted to be. And then the only other thing I had is not a skill at all, but just maybe something that could be helpful is if there's anyone that you would trust and feel safe enough with to have them come with you, to just, be a presence of someone you can trust and who will validate you and tell you that you are being a badass. And if the doctors and nurses are shits again, to be able to tell you they're being shits and you have no reason to be embarrassed or feel ashamed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There you go.
There's
me not saying so, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that in the last Q&A of how we realize we say that all the time. So we're trying to do better. We're doing good so far.
I know. We've gotten better about umming over the course of this. We can.
I don't know if I've gotten better about umming. I still am.
You've gotten better. It's still there, but it's better.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, I feel better. Okay, next one. This one is short, but there's a lot here that probably a lot of people can relate to. Okay, so this person posted in our Facebook group and said, current realization. My husband wants to get close. I push him away. He gets upset. I blow up. I either push him away again even more, or he comes back and then I'm happy. What the fuck is this cycle and which tools can I use to get out of it? I'm just drained of myself.
Oh, yeah, that is a bit packed into a tiny punch. And I've run into those least favorite of things where I'm trying to remember exactly what I meant by one of my notes. So we'll leave that part for last while I think about why the hell I was suggesting it. So to start with, maybe in reverse order. So you might try using give with the husband for repairs at the end of this cycle. Right? Listening to him, being validating of what's going on, trying to have, a kind and easy manner with him. Maybe even giving him a space to talk about how it's like to be on his side of that cycle, right? Trying to use give in the way it's meant to be used, which is to help nourish or repair different relationships. So that might be something for afterwards, because even if we give you all the right tools and you start practicing them immediately, long ingrained cycles are going to take a bit, right, to get out of. Don't expect one and done, right? So it's good to have something you can do afterwards, even while you're working on it. Also, wise mind and mindfulness of emotions, right? Do you notice, I don't know, is it every time your husband gets close that this starts? Is it if you've been feeling particularly depressed? Is it if you've been feeling ashamed? Is it if you've been feeling anxious, right? Is there an emotional state where if you're in that state and he tries to get close, you're more likely to start off on this cycle? You can even practice mindfulness of emotions in the middle of the cycle if you can, right? Be like, oh, I'm feeling, rage now. That's curious, right? One of the cool things I think about both mindfulness and wise mind is there's a bit of inherent curiosity to them. And sometimes you'd be surprised at how much impact we can have on something just by being curious about it. Why am I feeling this way? Where is this coming from? I wonder what happened right here. right? Like provide, like just trying to look at it. I think slicing it thinner, right? Isn't that what they always call it?
Yeah.
Right? Well, right, to just try and look at things with curiosity. The other cool thing about curiosity, this is not strictly DBT, but is, I don't know how to put it. Like it's less judgmental. It's hard to be judgmental and curious at the same time. Those are not easy coexisting states emotionally, and so it seems to me pretty likely that at the very least at the end of this cycle, and plausibly in the middle of it, you're starting to judge yourself. You feel bad about this. You feel shame about it. You feel embarrassment about it. And those emotions are not ones we like. And so it can actually be likely to keep perpetuating itself, right? By judging yourself in the middle of it. So if you can bring curiosity to the table, it might help nudge enough of the judgment out that you can have a better understanding of yourself, right? Michelle, why did I say effective rethinking and paired relaxation? I still can't remember why.
I have no idea.
All right, my best guess, and listener, I do apologize, but it is a bit of a guess, is like if you know this is a cycle you engage in regularly, like if you know his opening line for trying to get close, or the kind of motion that he makes, right? You know your hubby, and what that first move might look like. And so you might try practicing the effective rethinking and paired relaxation to try and bring in new thoughts or reactions on your part. So maybe you don't take that second step to get the cycle off and running. If you can practice new reactions to whatever his opening gambit usually is. That's my best guess, I think. I hope that sounds good. I hope that's what I meant.
Yep. Yeah, we wrote our notes.
Sounds reasonable.
For this Q&A a few days ago. So.
Usually we're pretty good, but every now and then.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I love everything you're saying, Kate, about the curiosity piece, because my response really focuses on the listener said, what the fuck is this cycle? And which tools can I use to get out of it? So I'm really focusing on what is the cycle? What's going on here? Ultimately, what this is, which, I mean, I could go on and on about this. It has nothing to do with DBT. Google it. Google attachment theory for romantic relationships, or attachment theory for adults. Google that. But basically, the whole idea is that we all have an attachment style. And sometimes our attachment style and our partner's attachment style don't get along very well. So when one person wants closeness, the other wants distance, and vice versa, and it can create a lot of conflict. But to give some validation here, listener, I don't know how much this applies to you or not, but closeness can feel unsafe if you've been hurt before. Just generally speaking, especially for people who have experienced trauma. It is safer to stay in your house than to leave your house and go out in the world, right? It's safer to try to build up a lot of boundaries around you than it is to let those walls down and let people in. So if you are feeling like your husband is getting too close and then your walls are going up, yeah, just like, to use the word Kate was using, just get curious about why that might be. Why are your walls going up there? Without that judgment, right? Kate was talking about how important that is to not have that judgment of yourself. Just to be curious. Because looking at the cycle, which you spelled it out really well, actually. Again, I'm picturing it like a little circle, where one step, there's an arrow to the next, and it just goes round and round in a circle, right? But the I push him away piece, that's what we can control, is what's going on for you there when you're pushing him away. Why that is, and what you can do differently. Now, this doesn't mean you have to let him in if that's not feeling safe or comfortable for you. But again, how can you set a boundary in a way that perhaps isn't going to create a lot of distance between the two of you? It's kind of how I'm thinking about it. So the skill that I thought might be helpful there is to use dear man. I specifically said dear man it, like using dear man as a verb. One way to do this, which isn't like super clear, dear man, but I mean, would be there in the A step, right? The assert. I'm a big fan of using the strategy, not this, but that. So if somebody is wanting something from you and you don't want to give them what they're wanting, say, no, I can't give you that, but I can give you this. Right? Super cliche example, right? Let's say your husband is wanting to have sex and you don't want to have sex that night. You can say, I don't want to have sex tonight. However, I'd love it if we just cuddled. Right? So give an alternative. If you have a friend that's saying, hey, could we go out to dinner tomorrow? And if you're like, no, I'm not free tomorrow, but I am free next weekend, right? So think about for yourself what you are okay with and what you're not okay with. And articulate that. Because what's good to get in the practice and the habit of with this whole concept of like your husband's wanting to get close and you're pushing him away and all of that. Well, how close is too close and how close is okay? So Kate and I do this exercise in DBT groups. We have not done it since COVID. Bummer, because we really liked doing it. So I'll try to spell it out as clearly as I can. But what we would do as an icebreaker for the interpersonal effectiveness module, when we would teach that, is we would have two people stand across the room from each other, and they would be facing the other person. And then one person would take a step, then the other person would take a step, and they would alternate taking a step one at a time, getting closer to each other. And then at any point, either person could say, stop. And one person would say stop, and then the other person's job was to respect that.
Stop.
But the reason why we did this is because we wanted people to get a sense of, how close is too close and how close is not close enough. And we would say this before the exercise. We would say some of you might wind up getting very close. Some people would walk all the way up to each other and give each other a hug. Sometimes neither person would say stop. They're like, I feel comfortable. I feel safe. This is okay. Sometimes one person would take a step and the other person would say stop. Like, that's good. I don't want you to come any closer
to me.
And either way is completely okay. There's no right or wrong with what your boundaries are. It's all about, I love that you were using the word curious, Kate. It's all about just getting curious about what they are and then being able to give them a voice. And if you get practice doing that, then it's not going to be pushing your husband away anymore. It's just going to be communicating your boundaries to him. And there's definitely a very loving way to communicate boundaries. Those are my thoughts. I didn't say, so yeah.
You didn't say it. It's so close, but you didn't say it.
I did come
This
close.
one is the last one.
The last one.
Also short.
Mm-hmm.
So this one says, I'm 10 episodes into the podcast and I love it. Anyone know how I can get over thoughts of this guy from my past? It's like compulsive thoughts. I mean, there is no way we will be together, but I have an obsession with him and I stalk his social media all the time.
Oh, there's a lot I could say here. I'm gonna try.
I know. I think my response is really short because I was like, Michelle's got a lot of this one.
Yeah, I'm responding first to this one. So, oh man, there's a lot to say. First of all, it's so normal and so tempting to look at social media. And a lot of like once your relationship is ended, it's so common and it's so easy and so accessible to do. Because the reality is you're trying to process your grief. And especially if, I'm guessing this guy broke up with you, not the other way around. So it's not like your feelings just turn off like a light switch. That's not how we work as human beings. You probably still love him. Right? You love him, you miss him, and it's so easy to just, want to see how he's doing and that kind of a thing. Oh, but this isn't doing you any favors with your grief. It can intensify the grief. I believe, don't get me wrong, it is, I don't want to take away from or compare like the death of someone and that kind of loss to the loss that comes with a romantic relationship. Both are hard and difficult and challenging for their own reasons. But in so many ways, when a romantic relationship ends, it can feel like a death. But because it's not, and you know this person is still alive and moving through the world, right? There's that temptation to want to know how they're doing. But then you can't really grieve if you're constantly being reminded of them. It doesn't really work like that. Grief is going through this process of reconfiguring your life now that this person isn't in it anymore. That could be a very difficult, long process. So, avoiding social media is important. And yes, it's going to feel like withdrawals. You know why? Because social media in general lights up the dopamine receptors of your brain. We are very easily addicted to social media, and we can also very easily become addicted to people who we love. So it's a double whammy. So yeah, it's going to feel like withdrawals, and it's going to be really difficult to not look at his social media, but try to do it. Because there's other ways to grieve, right? Like notice, I'm sure you probably have some other reminders of him around you, in your house and that kind of a thing. Try to notice what those reminders are. You don't have to immediately throw things away, right? I think a lot of times when we think of breakups, we imagine people like ripping up pictures and things like that and like burning everything. No, you don't have to do that. What I would actually encourage is that you not get rid of things right away. But like if you have objects around your house that remind you of him, give yourself some time and space to sit with that stuff and like feel your emotions about it. Let yourself cry, let yourself grieve. Then you can decide what to do about it. You might decide to actually keep those things, or you might decide to get rid of them, and there's no right or wrong there. But like, feel your emotions. Really let it sink in that this relationship is over. And though he is living on this earth, he is gone from your life. And really take space to allow yourself to feel that. Another way that can help with the grief here, writing letters you don't send. I'm a big fan of that. So that can be really helpful too. And also I think the biggest thing is to like figure out what it looks like to connect with your friends and other people around you. When we're in a romantic relationship, that person takes up a lot of time and space in our lives. We do a lot of things with them, hopefully. And then when they're gone, it can be like, well, now what do I do? You know, we used to always go out to dinner every Friday night. Well, now what am I doing on Friday night, for example? Try to build up the other connections that you have in your life and lean on the people around you. So I'm not really couching any of this in DBT terms, though I know these are DBT things that I'm talking about. I just didn't write it out as DBT skills, and I don't want to go on too long, but that's the stuff that I would recommend. Really try to go cold turkey with looking at his social media, because there are other ways to grieve that are going to be healthier for you than continuing to look at it and just reminding yourself, oh yeah, he's out there living his life. We know that. And it's going to be painful every time you think about that. So try to grieve in other ways. And I hope that that will help you. And just be super, super, super patient with yourself. All the patience. Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, with the social media thing, just you might try things like ride the wave or pros and cons.
That's great. Thank you, Kate.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah. Right. You might do pros and cons for yourself. I know that we were talking about some of the pros and cons, but you know, I still love pros and cons for the fact that it gives us a space to talk about why we're doing the thing that we that's bad for us.
Very good additions to what I was talking about.
Anyway, so yeah, I just thought about those when you were talking about doing the cold turkey, is how to support the cold turkeyness might be pros and cons, and ride the wave. One thing I thought about is see if maybe you can figure out what he did for you or brought to you or your life that might be causing you to cling to the memories or to the thoughts of the relationship. This is maybe kind of shallow, but I think illustrates the point that I'm trying to get across, is like, if you and he went out dancing 3 nights a week, every week, and that was your thing, your jam was dancing, and now you don't have anyone to dance with, and so it makes you miss him all the time because you want to be dancing, and dancing was with him, right? Find someone else to go dancing with, right? Like, it doesn't have to be a partner or anything else, but like find another avenue to get that thing in your life that's now missing because this person is gone, right? I mean, obviously the person is missing, and I think Michelle did a lovely job of talking about what to do to grieve and move through the emotions around the person being gone. But it might be easier to, I don't know, mourn, let go, move on past that if you can figure out what holes were left in your life by them being gone and see if you might be able to fill that in other ways, right? Like, this person ideally wasn't your only channel. Well, might have been your only channel, but not the only possible channel, right? To access these emotions or these hobbies or these activities or these spaces, right? That you're really missing. And last but not least, I'm a big fan of T from Accepts for derailing obsessive thoughts. Whether that be just reminiscing about the guy himself or thinking about wanting to go and get on the social media again, right? Like, 4-letter L words are the savior of everything. Right? Something to just knock your brain off that track. Something that you can do repeatedly because you're gonna have to do it repeatedly. That's sort of what obsessive means, right? So if you're having obsessive thoughts, you gotta have something in your back pocket that you can pull out at a moment's notice to help derail that train before it gets up to speed. So those are mine.
Yeah. Great stuff. Okay, we're all done.
We're all done.
Yeah, so we had a good mix tonight of emails and Facebook posts. So yeah, if you have questions for us, you can send them via email to dbtmepodcast@gmail.com, or you can join and post in the Facebook group. Just search for DBT Me Podcast from your Facebook. And that's how you can give us continued content for Q&A, which we love.
We do.
I am also getting very tired at the end of recording.
I was going to say, you're a little drifty there.
I totally just lost my train of thought in the middle, but I'll know what I'm getting at. Reach out to us.
I don't know. Have we mentioned already that we're recording at night now and how different that is?
Oh, I don't think we have. Yeah, we used to record, typically I want to say on Tuesdays in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 9 or 10 a.m. we would record. And now, given my life with a baby, figuring out when my husband is around and not working to take care of him so that I can be here recording with you all has been a journey. So yeah, we record on Monday evenings now. And
yeah, whole new experience.
It's a very new experience. Yes, especially because I'm much more of a morning person. That is when I'm at my best.
I am also more of a morning person.
So afternoon, it just goes way downhill. So yeah. Okay, well, thank you for being here, everyone, and we'll
catch you guys next time. We love you.
Yay. Bye.
To learn more about us and the DBT skills we're teaching each week, join our Facebook group. Simply log in to your Facebook profile and search for DBT